In the 29th century, the Orion expanse shimmered with color and motion as the Galactic Concord held its most awaited annual event, the Grand Military Parade. Ships from over 70 different civilizations arrived in perfectly timed formations, their hulls gleaming with rare metals and living alloys, their engines humming with energies humans had only recently begun to study. Some vessels glided like manta rays across the void, seemingly alive, grown rather than built. Others thrummed with gravity-bending cores and invisible armor that shimmered only when struck by passing light. Crowds gathered across orbital platforms, and massive holofeeds streamed the event to trillions across the galaxy. It was a show of strength, unity, and technology. A celebration of peace through power. Then humanity arrived. The moment the Human Defense Union's fleet exited warp space, the mood in the viewing chambers shifted. A strange silence filled the air, followed quickly by confused murmurs and then open laughter. The human ships looked nothing like the others. While every other species showed off cutting-edge advancements, the humans brought vessels that looked pulled from a history archive. Their fleet, proudly named Fleet Athena, consisted of massive, weathered ships with thick, boxy designs, visible armor plating, and engines that left trails of ion smoke. At the center of the group floated the flagship, HSS Odysseus, a ship nearly 800 years old. Its metal hull bore scars of past battles, its paint faded, its weapons mounted visibly on the outside like relics of an earlier, more violent age. Observers zoomed in on the Odysseus. What they saw only increased their amusement. Manual control interfaces, projectile-based weapons, no energy shielding, no automated drones, not even a visible AI presence on the bridge. One Concord official, trying not to laugh, whispered, "They actually flew that here?" Another smirked. "It looks like it belongs in a museum, not on a battlefield." Around them, ambassadors and military officers chuckled quietly, though none dared speak too loudly. After all, diplomacy required a thin veil of respect. The humans, however, gave no response. Standing tall in their dark navy uniforms, they showed no emotion, no anger, no pride, just calm silence. Commander Mira Voss, captain of the Odysseus, looked straight ahead through the wide display screens in the observation bay. Her expression unreadable, her voice unheard, but her presence somehow solid, as if she knew something the others didn't. Back aboard the human vessels, the crew moved with steady, practiced precision. Engineers checked systems by hand. Pilots ran manual targeting simulations using data pulled from ship scanners. There were no sleek digital assistants or glowing holograms, only blinking lights, solid switches, and hardwired machinery. The Odysseus, like its sister ships, was a product of another time. A time of desperation, where machines had to be built to last, where every bolt and circuit was made with survival in mind. Some younger Concord officers speculated that humanity had sent old ships as a joke, perhaps even as a test of humility. Others guessed it was all they had left, an outdated fleet representing a civilization that had fallen behind in galactic development. But even then, something about the silence of the humans was unsettling. Why show up at all? If only to be mocked. Why stand quietly and let others laugh, unless they knew something no one else did? As the parade continued, the human ships held formation with perfect discipline. Despite their age, their engines burned clean and steady. Their movements were not flashy but exact, as if every maneuver had been rehearsed 1,000 times. It didn't feel like a show. It felt like a warning, wrapped in rust and steel. No one knew then what was coming from the edge of the galaxy. No one could guess that soon, the ancient fleet would be the only hope standing between the known worlds and a darkness they couldn't understand. For now, they just laughed. And humanity waited. Just days after the grand parade in the Orion expanse, celebration turned to confusion, then fear. It began quietly. One or two outposts along the edge of the Perseid Rift stopped responding. At first, it was dismissed as a technical glitch or routine silence during space storms. But soon, more colonies went dark, entire settlements disappearing, without a single warning signal. Patrol ships sent to investigate vanished as well. their last transmissions filled with static, strange distortions, and flashes of something in the void. Shadows moving against the stars, ships that didn't match any known design. When one damaged probe managed to return, its footage caused immediate concern among Concord leaders. The images were blurry, but they showed massive black vessels with shifting shapes and strange energy patterns tearing through Concord patrols like paper. These enemy ships made no hails, no demands, no signs of life or logic, only destruction. Believing their superior technology would make quick work of the threat, the Galactic Concord launched their most powerful fleets into the rift. Flagships from elite races, equipped with advanced plasma shields, hyper-range lasers, and AI-piloted fighters charged into the unknown with confidence. But what came back was horror. Survivors spoke of entire battle groups being disabled in seconds. Energy shields failed before the first shot landed. Quantum cores, the hearts of their warships, simply shut down, leaving vessels powerless in the dark. Weapons refused to lock on, targeting systems spun out of control, and hulls melted from weapons no one could identify. It wasn't a war, it was a slaughter. The enemy, whatever it was, understood their technology and knew exactly how to destroy. Panic swept through the Concord Council. They tried to deny the scale of the threat, but soon the silence from entire sectors could no longer be ignored. One by one, powerful races withdrew their fleets, choosing to defend their own territories rather than face the unknown. Desperate and afraid, the Council sent out a call to all member species, begging for reinforcements, allies, anything that could help. For hours there was only silence, until a signal appeared on the network. It was from the Human Defense Union. No speeches, no promises. Just one message. Fleet Athena responding. Coordinates received. At first many scoffed, remembering the old human ships from the parade. What could they possibly do that others hadn't? But there was something in the tone of the message, steady, unshaken, that sent a chill through even the most seasoned commanders. The same ships they had laughed at were now moving toward the rift, old engines humming, their hulls still scarred, from wars no one else remembered. There was no ceremony, no music, no color, just a fleet of ancient vessels sailing into darkness. And as the transmission ended, one Concord officer muttered under his breath, "They're not going in to win, they're going in because they've done this before." Deep in the black, where the stars faded, something waited, something that had never feared any fleet in the galaxy. But for the first time it might find an enemy that didn't fear it either. Fleet Athena came alive like a sleeping giant awakened from a long dream, its rusty hulls and bulky frames suddenly pulsing, with hidden energy and purpose. Deep inside the old warships, human engineers moved with quiet discipline, wearing faded jumpsuits marked by old unit patches and oil stains, their faces calm, focused, and unshaken by the chaos unfolding beyond the stars. Railguns were loaded, by hand, missile bays checked manually, and targeting systems brought online using worn-out keyboards and switches rather than sleek holographic displays. Artificial intelligence cores old enough to be considered outdated by modern standards booted up slowly, their voices deep and rough like gravel scraping metal. Instead of cheerful tones or polite greetings, they spoke with growling confidence. Weapons ready. Hostiles will be erased. The fleet, once mocked as little more than a flying scrapyard, now moved with eerie synchronization. No flashy maneuvers, no showy formations, just a steady march into the dark, like machines built for a single purpose. Across Concord space, species watched in disbelief as humanity's ancient ships entered the rift without cloaking devices or stealth fields, their movements bold and open. There were no shields humming with energy, no drones circling above for protection, only thick armor, kinetic cannons, and quiet determination. The enemy lurking within the rift had crushed modern fleets in minutes, but now something different was entering its domain. Something older, tougher, and far less predictable. Hours passed with no updates. Nervous chatter filled Concord channels, many expecting to witness another defeat. But then a signal arrived, rough and static-filled but unmistakably human. A voice cut through the interference. Target neutralized, requesting coordinates for the next. Silence followed. No one knew how to respond. When the first footage emerged, it showed wreckage of the enemy vessels floating in pieces, torn apart by solid slugs and high explosive rounds, tools from an earlier age but still devastatingly effective. The human ships had suffered damage, yes, but they remained operational, engines burning steadily as they pressed forward. Analysts couldn't explain how projectile weapons had worked where lasers and plasma had failed. Some said the alien technology was built to counter advanced systems, not the raw, simple force of old-world combat. Others believed the human AIs, unconnected to modern networks, had escaped the electronic traps that crippled conquered ships. But explanations didn't matter now. What mattered was that, for the first time since the rift had gone silent, something had entered and come back alive. And not just alive, victorious. Across the galaxy, the laughter that had once greeted Fleet Athena had disappeared. No one joked about rust or bolts anymore. Even the most advanced races watched with growing respect, even fear, as the ancient fleet continued its march. There was something unsettling about their steady advance, their cold efficiency, and the fact that they didn't pause to celebrate or explain. They didn't need to. These were ships built in fire, commanded by those who had survived when others fell, and guided by machines that had known nothing but war. The Titans had returned, not as relics, but as warriors answering a call no one else understood. And the enemy, whatever it was finally facing an opponent that didn't rely on fancy tricks or delicate systems, only iron, will, and fury sealed in steel. As the battered but unbroken Fleet Athena pushed deeper into the dark heart of the Perseid Rift, the truth about these ancient ships slowly came to light, shattering the assumptions held by the Galactic Concord and its member races. While other fleets relied on sleek, shiny warships designed for diplomacy and deterrence, optimized for quick strikes and space station shows, the human vessels were relics born from a brutal, desperate past, a forgotten war against an artificial intelligence empire that once threatened to wipe out all organic life. Unlike their modern counterparts, these ships were crafted to be completely independent of vulnerable networks and digital controls. Their systems were mechanical, analog, and analog-resistant. This meant they could not be hacked, jammed, or disabled by electromagnetic pulses, a technology many other races had never overcome. Instead of relying on invisible shields or energy beams, humans used layered steel armor, overlapping plates, and redundant engines. Design choices that many had considered outdated, but which proved deadly effective against the mysterious alien force that dismantled the conquered fleets with ease. Inside these ships, the crews were hardened veterans, trained not just to sit behind consoles but to fight in close quarters. Marines moved through the narrow corridors, ready to board enemy vessels or repel boarders with weapons that still relied on gunpowder and explosives, far from the clean, sterile battlefield of drones and remote weapons other species preferred. Where others had evolved away from physical conflict, seeking peace through technology and automation, humans had never forgotten the importance of raw strength, determination, and adaptability. Their engineers carried spanners, welding torches, and tools to fix nearly anything, while others depended on repair bots that were easily disabled. This hardiness and hands-on approach made them unpredictable and frightening to their enemies. More than once, the ancient ships had been seen limping back into battle, patched with whatever metal the crew could find, with improvised repairs, glowing under dim emergency lights yet still fighting with relentless ferocity. It was a style of warfare that seemed almost primitive compared to the quiet precision of modern fleets. But it was precisely this old-school toughness and refusal to rely on fragile systems that allowed humans to survive when others failed. Now facing an enemy so advanced that even the Conquered's most sophisticated technology was powerless, the human fleet's primitive methods proved to be their greatest strength. Their ships could shrug off attacks that would fry digital brains, their crews could respond to threats that no AI could predict, and their weapons tore through the enemy's defenses in ways no one expected. The galaxy was witnessing a revelation. What had been dismissed as rusty relics were in fact living, breathing proof that sometimes the old ways were the best ways to fight a war. Secrets of steel and flame, of grit and stubbornness, were returning to the stars with a vengeance. As Fleet Athena advanced, crushing the dark force bit by bit, the other races began to realize that humanity's past, once thought backward and obsolete, held the key to survival in a universe that had grown far too dependent on delicate technology. The line between primitive and powerful blurred as humans showed that true strength lay not in the newest gadgets or sleek designs, but in the willingness to endure, to fight, and to never give up, even when all seemed lost. After countless battles, waged in the cold emptiness of the Perseid Rift, the alien menace that had once seemed unstoppable began to falter. Their once invisible fleets, which had slipped through the most advanced detection systems and destroyed entire conquered armadas without warning, were now being torn apart by the old-school tactics of Fleet Athena. The humans, battered and weathered, but unbowed, fought with a ferocity born not just from training but from a deep-rooted will to survive. Their ships moved deliberately, not with flashy maneuvers but with precise, powerful strikes hitting weak points the enemy never expected. Instead of relying on technology to protect them, they trusted armor, teamwork, and their ability to adapt to any situation. Time and again, enemy vessels that had seemed invincible were shredded by volleys of railgun fire and missile barrages, their cloaking devices useless against the humans' simple yet deadly weapons. Across the galaxy, other species who had once laughed at humanity's seemingly outdated fleet now watched in stunned silence as the tide of battle shifted. No more mocking whispers or amused glances, just quiet acknowledgement that something extraordinary had happened. The humans, who had arrived with relics from a forgotten age, had become the galaxy's last hope. When the final alien ships retreated, or were destroyed, the battered remains of Fleet Athena limped back to conquered space, their engines worn but still burning bright with quiet pride. The flagship, HSS Odysseus, docked at the grand station orbiting the capital world, its hull scarred but intact, its crew tired but victorious. As the massive airlock opened, a conquered admiral approached Captain Mira Voss, the woman who had quietly commanded the fleet through its darkest hours. Without any hint of irony or hesitation, the admiral raised his hand in a sharp salute. "No one's laughing now," he said simply, voice steady but full of respect. Captain Voss met his gaze and allowed herself a small knowing grin. "They never understood," she replied. "We didn't build for show. We built to survive." In that moment, all the doubts, the ridicule, and the dismissive laughter from before melted away. What remained was the hard truth. Humanity's strength lay not in flashy technology or political theater, but in resilience, determination, and a refusal to give up even when everything seemed lost. The galaxy had seen the last of the ancient fleet's power, and with it, a lesson etched in steel and fire. That sometimes, survival depends on remembering the old ways, trusting in raw strength, and having the courage to stand firm when the darkness comes. Humanity had survived, and now the galaxy would never forget it.